We don't get any interference. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Yanel Morley, and this is the May 6, 2025 Board of Education of Charles County Town Hall. I am pleased to serve as your chairperson. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will now share our mission. The mission of Charles County Public Schools is to provide an opportunity for school-aged children to receive an academically challenging, quality education that builds character, equips for leadership, and prepares for life in an environment that is safe and conducive to learning. So again, welcome. And for anyone who may have just joined, I'm Yanel Morley, the chairperson of the Board of Education. Thank you for joining our town hall this evening. The purpose is twofold, to both present information as well as to hear directly from our parents and community. The topic of tonight's town hall is school safety. The board has held town halls meetings at least quarterly for the past 2 years on a variety of topics, including school safety. However, as you are aware, we have had 2 very unfortunate and deeply disturbing incidents occur in our schools recently, both involving students bringing loaded guns to school. Thankfully, our staff and SROs reacted quickly both times, and no one was injured. Thank you to our principals, staff, teachers, SROs, youth engagement advocates, and community partners who work diligently every day to ensure our students' safety. Your efforts do not go unnoticed, and we sincerely appreciate you. Thank you also to our brave students who tell a trusted adult whenever they see anything that they know is inappropriate in our schools, especially weapons. But let me be clear, bringing any weapons, especially guns, is not acceptable in Charles County Public Schools and will not be tolerated. Like many of our board members, superintendent, and staff, my own children attend CCPS, and I entrust their safety to CCPS every school day. As a parent, I share your anxiety and trauma whenever incidents like this occur. I often say that we have to be prepared as a school system to have the uncomfortable conversations, and tonight is one such example. Tonight, our superintendent and her staff will share CCPS safety data, details surrounding the 2 incidents at Billingsley and Westlake, short and long-term improvements to safety protocols, and the CCPS plan to keep our children safe. School safety is not an easy or quick fix, nor is it something that we will ever stop making a core priority. There will be an opportunity for you to post your questions in the chat and have them answered in real time by board members, our superintendent, and staff. Now, please allow me to introduce my fellow board members, beginning with our Vice Chair, Ms. Nicole Kramer. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Next on my screen, I see Dr. Latanya Dubrow-Smalls. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes. Next, I see Ms. Brenda Thomas.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Mr. David Hancock.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening. Ms. Linda Warren.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And Ms. Samisha Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Oh, my apologies. Ms. Jamila Smith. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I should be on camera shortly.
No worries. Thank you for joining. Are there any other board members present? I want to make sure I haven't missed anyone. All right. Thank you all so very much. Next up, our superintendent, Dr. Maria Navarro, will begin the school safety presentation. Joining her in presenting will be Mr. Jason Stoddard, our Director of School Safety and Security, as well as Dr. Michael Blanchard, our Director of Student Services. Dr. Navarro, if you would, please introduce your staff, and then you may begin.
Good evening, board members. Ms. Morley, I'm going to take a second just to make sure that any Spanish-speaking families know how to access the closed captions. So I'm going to turn to Spanish and then I'll be right back. Muy buenas noches, bienvenidos a la reunión de la Junta Administrativa del Condado de Charles Les quería dejar saber que si necesitan subtítulos en español, por favor vayan a la cajita que dice CC, oprímanla, y donde dice seleccione traducción, translation, por favor oprima ese botón y seleccione de inglés a español. Gracias. Good evening, everybody. Oh, I just turned my own closed caption. Sorry, I'm going to turn my closed caption off. Good evening, everybody. Maria Navarro, Superintendent. Joining me this evening are several of my staff members. You heard from our board chair, Ms. Moore-Lee, that Mr. Jason Stoddard and Dr. Michael Blanchard will be co-presenting with me this evening, but I also have other staff here this evening. Those are Kevin Lowndes, our Chief of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Marvin Jones, our Chief of Schools, Shelley Mackey, and thank you, and I believe Sarah's in the background somewhere, maybe hidden, are helping to support the chat so that we are able to capture all of your comments this evening and that we are able to make sure that we respond to the questions in the chat. With us as well is Charmaine Youngwadi, who is from our office, also of school operations. So I will get us started, Ms. Moore-Lee, if that is okay to go. Great.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Navarro.
Shelley, can we put up the presentation, please? Put it on presentation mode. There we go. Thank you so much, Shelley. So as the board chair, Ms. Moore-Lee, mentioned this evening, we want to be able to present to our community an overview of how we in Charles County Public Schools deal with the safety and security of all of our students. Next slide, please. As Ms. Moore-Lee mentioned, today's presentation will focus on recent incidents. Unfortunately, we had in the last month 2 incidents that involved guns, and we want to talk about those incidents, what we know about the incidents, what we did, what we learned from those incidents, and then in general, some of the other weapons issues and safety issues in our schools, and what we are doing right now, every single day, what we will do moving forward in long-term and short-term plans as mentioned. But I wanted to first remind our community that safety is a daily practice in CCPS schools, meaning that we prepare at the beginning of every school year, developing school safety plans and protocols at the district level, and each school submits an emergency plan and a safety plan, and we review those as well as train staff on safety protocols. We have students and staff conduct drills throughout the school year. We enhance facilities, all of our facilities, with meaningful enhancements to make sure that we have secure buildings and that our cameras are functioning for multiple purposes. And we also collaborate not just internally and with local partners, but also external security professionals. All that builds every single year more and more information about how to better support safety in our schools. Next slide. So one of the things that I wanted to let the community know is that we came to the board and presented, and we do every single year, twice a year, the information around our school climate data. And in that data, we presented at the April board meeting the safety data of our schools. Here you can see that the majority of our students, about 81% of our students, really have no violations in their day-to-day presence in our schools. A small percentage, but an important percentage, do have violations, and some of those could be dress code violations, tardy to classes, and then some of those violations can really be those of difficult situations, such as the incidents that we had recently with guns in our schools. So they range quite a bit. Overall, our schools are places where learning is happening during the day and are overall safe places to be. However, the reason that is the case is because we work on these issues all the time. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we do to support the safety of our students and our staff in our schools every single day. But we need to talk also about the data and what you as the community can help us in terms of dealing with these issues. Next slide, please. So at the April board meeting, next slide, Shelley.
I'm trying to get it there. PowerPoint's being funny, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It might be stuck.
I'm gonna go back into it, I apologize.
No problem.
It's okay, no worries.
There we go.
We're back.
Are you able to show it?
Yes,
It's just taking a
pop it
moment.
back up. Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay.
All right.
Technology is great when it works.
Right.
So as Shelley's bringing this up, one of the things that I want to cue up is that we look at our violations in terms of serious violations. Shelley, if we can click. And in the April board meeting, we discussed the major serious violations that we have throughout the school system. Things like major fighting, major disrespect in the schools, and we categorize that in the severity of issues. As I mentioned earlier, you can have a violation that can be a dress code violation all the way to more severe violations. Next.
Sorry, one quick question in the chat. How do we define a violation?
So a violation is a violation to our student code of conduct. So one of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about are incidents that are very serious and are also at the same time very rare in our schools. And so if you see the red circle, it highlights over the last 3 years the incidents where we've had major firearms in our schools. Major firearms are what we had in the last month, which is a loaded gun in our schools. Next. But that is not the only definition of weapons in our schools. So if you take a look at that, the past 3 years, you see in the very bottom in the black, you see the incidents where we've had a gun in our schools. We didn't have any in 22-23. We had one incident in 23-24, and we had 3 incidents this year as we close out this year. But if you see the gray in terms of weapons, that can be what we see often in our schools, which is also problematic. Things like knives, like razors, like tasers, okay? And those come often into our schools. And I want to reiterate that part of what you'll hear today is, how do we prepare? What do we do in those instances? What are we thinking of incorporating to ensure that those weapons, whether it be a gun to all the way to knives, diminishes in our schools? And more importantly, also, what do we need help from you, the community, parents that are listening today, to help us keep these items from coming into the schools? We are able to confiscate these items, but they are walking into our schools. So I want to talk specifically about the 2 incidents that bring us together and that we that talk about what happened, what we learned from those, and things that we're looking at. And I know that I saw in the chat, things beginning to pop up like metal detectors, clear book bags. We're going to talk through what we know about those layers of additional security and what's the return on investment of doing such things. So, Mr. Stoddard, I'll let you continue.
Good evening, everybody. Ms. Morley, Superintendent Navarro, and our special guests. My name is Jason Stoddard. I'm the Director of Safety and Security for the Charles County Public Schools. Thank you for joining us this evening. One of the things that I'd like to start with saying is I not only come to you as your Director of School Safety and Security, but I also come to you as a parent of a 4th grade student in one of our schools. And I join you in the anxiety, the feeling of being scared, your frustration, and quite frankly, your anger. And one of the things that I want to say by the end of this is that some of you are going to disagree with me vehemently in some of the things that we're going to say this evening, and that we're going to go over this evening, and we understand that. Our staff is not only in charge of protecting our children, but also yours, and that includes 28,000 babies. And we do that every day to the best of our abilities. My job is to tell you the truth and to be realistic with what we have, what we've done, and where we are going. Somebody's going to ask by the end of this what we're going to do to guarantee your children's safety. Someone's going to ask what we're going to do to improve. And the answer to the first question is, the honest answer is we can't guarantee your children's safety, and no one can. However, we do everything that we can to keep your baby safe every day. And by the end of this, you're going to see all the things that we have put in place and will continue to put in place that frankly have been very successful. My question that I'm going to ask to you to contemplate, as you've heard so far, is how are you going to help us? And that's where we're going to go with this evening. So let us start with the events that occurred at Billingsley Elementary School on April 10th. This event actually started 2 days prior to April 10th. And it's important to understand where this event actually started. Shelley, you can go ahead. On the 8th of April, the student who had the firearm showed the firearm to a student in the classroom. That was not reported to any staff.
Jason, I hate to interrupt you. For some reason, I'm not able to advance these slides. It seems like when I touch my device, it pauses on me. So my apologies once again.
Would you like me to try and share?
Sure, if you have the PowerPoint presentation up, that would be helpful.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Did it come up okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So on April 8th, the student shows witness one that the firearm in his book bag was in the classroom. On the 9th, the student showed the firearm to another student in his book bag in the classroom. That same day, he showed the weapon to another student in his book bag in the classroom. None of those events were reported to a teacher or to a parent. We then have the event that occurred on the 10th. The shot was fired at about 9:30 in the morning. When the shot was fired in the classroom, there were 23 students and 3 adults, plus a volunteer standing directly outside the classroom. No one recognized the shot as being a gunshot. The original thought was that a ballast blew or a balloon popped. There was a slight smell of smoke, but nobody put together, because it is human nature to not believe that this was a gunshot that was fired. There was no injuries. There was no splatter from the bullet hitting the ground that caused any additional information to lead anyone to believe that this was a shot that had been fired inside the room. At that point, the assistant principal is called, as it says, with the smell of smoke, and there was also a report of a damaged chair in the classroom. The damaged chair was actually the individual who fired the weapon in the classroom. The assistant principal arrives about 3 minutes later, and she takes out the chair because they're still trying to figure out how all these things go together. Between 9:34 and 9:52, almost 20 minutes, the students continued with their morning routine while administration is still trying to figure out putting all the pieces together of what occurred. At about 9:52, the school resource officer who was in the building when the event occurred was stationed at the building, has an office in the building. This is one of the few elementary schools that we have a school resource officer who has an office in the building. And she begins her investigation at that point in time. She finds the firearm approximately 20 minutes later, and it is removed from the school. We're notified within the next couple minutes, and we begin to respond to the event. The first communications went out to the school's community, to Billingsley's community at 9:56 in the morning, letting them know that we were dismissing at noon and that there was an emergency that occurred. At 11:15, less than 20 minutes later, the community responded en masse, very, very quickly, in a very orderly fashion, and they started retrieving their students with the help of our amazing PPWs that were in the car rider line. At 12:18, all the buses left the school, and the second community email went out to Billingsley informing everybody that there was a firearm that had been discharged inside the building. Sadly, that was the first of two events that we had that brings us here today. The second event occurred at Westlake High School on the 24th after spring break. That morning, school started at about at 7:30. At 7:30, the principal was standing in the main office greeting students for arrival. If you're familiar with Westlake High School, directly across the street, there's several businesses. Those businesses are routinely used by our students as they're coming to school. Students were late coming to school. At about 7:35, a student walks through the door smelling strongly of marijuana. He's the principal was standing right there. He's immediately taken into a assistant principal's office in the main office, where they begin their investigation for the strong smell of marijuana. About 7:30 to between 7:35 and 7:40, the student is in the main office. They're trying to investigate. He does become uncooperative. At that point, the SRO is contacted and the student is searched. During the search, a 3D printed P80, which was in the model of a Glock handgun, was recovered with 13 rounds of ammunition along with marijuana, and the student was taken into custody. The gun never made it into the outside of the main office. Initial notifications were made within the next couple minutes. The email that was sent out to the parents went at about 8:57, to staff to inform the staff and the students of the event. Understanding that there is always a lot going on there. And yes, we can always be faster, but we will never be fast enough as we are trying to get information together, because while while people want to be first to share information, as your school system, we want to make sure that we are sharing the correct information, not just information. So there is a delay in that. Less than an hour is actually a pretty good turnaround time as it relates to these things. At 9:07, the principal shares the update with the parents and notes that a weapon has been found. Then at 3:46, the principal shares additional information with staff. And then later that evening, the follow-up information went out to the staff and to parents. So, as part of a state process, we're required to conduct an after-action review on what is referred to as a critical life-threatening incident. That after-action review is ongoing. We have 45 days from the date of the event to pull together the initial draft of an after-action report, and then contact the Maryland Center for School Safety, where they then host a after-action meeting. That meeting is upcoming. Once that meeting is completed, we have 100 days from the date of the event to publish or to send the after-action report to the state, which then in turn shares portions of that after-action report with the Maryland legislature and the Maryland government. We are well working through that process at this point in time. Some of the things that have come out in our after-action review, you will see on the screen. The use of the unified command system. If you watch in most school emergencies, there are three things that are mentioned over and over and over again that are failures. Those three things that are mentioned are communication, the unified command system, and reunification. What I'm so happy to say to you is that those three things were not three things that failed on our end, and that is a direct result of the practice, the drills, and all the things that we do. So the unified command system and the strong relationships that we have with the Charles County Sheriff's Office, who enabled us to respond to this event rather quickly, and we're talking specifically about the Billingsley event, as well as the Westlake event. The next thing with the familiarization with our emergency protocols, one of the questions that we've received a number of times is, why didn't we go into lockdown at Billingsley? Why didn't we go into lockdown at Westlake? The reason we didn't go into lockdown at Billingsley is you saw the timeline, and we responded to the facts of the event, not what it could have been or what we saw. What we were responding to is exactly what's in front of us, and we responded exactly like we were supposed to with the plans, with the drills that we went through. At Westlake, the gun was never presented. The gun was never threatened. The gun only came up after the search was completed, so there was never any threat to the inside of that building. During the initial investigation, there was a change in the operational protocol to Westlake, but that was just temporarily in order to make sure all the events were under control and that the school was safe. When it comes to our reunification that happened at Billingsley, the PPWs, our people personnel workers, this is an important time to note how important it is for our community's involvement. And I'm so happy and so proud we are to say that we hosted the largest family reunification drill in the state of Maryland in October, where we had over 100 of our students come and help us practice that. And that helped our PPWs get through get through this process flawlessly at Billingsley. Student mental health resources were available, which is and supports are always rolled out, both before, which Dr. Blanchard will talk to about a little bit later, but also afterwards, and our tragedy response protocols that our student services group oversees in the way that we do that, and then the rapid nature of our community communications. Some of the lessons learned. It is not factual to say that everything went correct, because it didn't. And quite frankly, what I would share with you is the fact that the reason that it didn't all go correctly is, thank goodness, we don't see these every day, and we don't respond to these and practice these every day. So there are things that we need to improve upon as it relates to the response. It is obvious that we had 3 missed touch points with the Billingsley Road event where a handgun was shown to students, and those students never brought it forward. So we get continuing to make sure that we are communicating and also training students on the use of the See Something, Say Something program that's been around since 2017. There are posters, there are QR codes, there are all kinds of things, but we obviously need to do more. Additional violence prevention and discussions of weapons and guns as it relates to our health and safety. And Dr. Blanchard will talk about that and what we're doing and how we're improving that moving forward. Also, communicating with our staff in a faster, more efficient way. This is always something that comes up. Again, we can always be faster, but we'll never be fast enough, especially with the speed of social media, the speed of people able to share things. And we understand that. But again, we want to make sure that our information is accurate, not necessarily always first. Also, the importance of human surveillance, of making sure that our staff is in the right places where they should be, which directly led to the recovery of the firearm at Westlake. We know that about 85% of all of our discipline issues come in areas that are unsupervised and where students have a lot of freedom to move. So the importance of having trusted adults, the importance of having staff in the right places was highlighted in these events, as well as the importance of staff and students' compliance as it relates to training. Understand that all of our staff, substitutes all the way to our building service workers, to our great food nutrition service workers, to our teachers, to everybody else, receives a number of different trainings on emergency response protocols. And that training goes over all the things that we're supposed to do. In this case, we did receive, when the operational change occurred at Westlake, we did receive some information that some of our staff did not do the things that they should have done. And that is, again, another training issue that we have to look at and that we have to get better at and that we are going to look to improve. So what we currently have in place, it's important that you understand that, and many of you have probably heard me say these things before, and they have not changed, that we have a multi-layered, scalable, and evidence-based school safety strategy. It's important to understand there is no golden pill that we can swallow or technology that we can purchase to make our schools safe, or that just isn't there. As much as we'd like to say it is, as we have seen in the DMV across the last 2 weeks, the amount of tragedies that we've had across the entire DMV that have occurred inside of schools, with a number of different schools that have a number of different security strategies, there is no one thing that we can do. So we believe in a multi-leveled, scalable approach. Interestingly enough, in the school safety realm, the one thing that you'll find is not all of us agree on what those layers need to be, but we all do agree that it needs to look like an onion. And by the end of what I'm going to talk about today, you'll see many of the things, but not all of them. You'll see many of the things that we do. We're committed and always have been committed to doing what is reasonable, logical, and fiscally responsible as it relates to keeping our students safe. Those 3 things are important as we walk through some of the considerations for some of the things that we have seen. Emotional decision-making does not usually turn out to be positive, nor does it turn out to be as successful as people hope. And that is important to understand, because we also have to be fiduciarily responsible. I've heard people say, well, we'll just pay whatever we want to pay. When you see some of these numbers, you will understand what that means and what the realities that we face when it comes to implementing school security strategies in fidelity, which means across 43 schools and centers that cover 432 square miles of Charles County. So we use a security strategy for those people that are in the security realm. They'll understand the deter, detect, deny, delay, and defend. And I'm going to walk through what those are kind of layers if you look at them. So if you look at that deterrence, we're looking at all the things that we have to do, from school safety drills, to making sure that we actually have a 4-page safety related checklist that people have to fill out, that the schools each have to complete before school begins. In 2019, after we recovered 2 handguns at a high school, within 6 weeks of each other, we instituted a backpack rule at the high school and the middle school level. That backpack rule says that that students will be allowed to bring their backpacks into school. However, they cannot carry them between classes. We understand that there are some schools that are still struggling to implement that with fidelity. However, that's been a policy for the Charles County Public Schools since 2019. It's been listed in the calendar on page 31 since 2019. So that has always been there. We have our annual safety drills for staff as well as our student code of conduct. As we move on to detection, we have a plethora of security cameras. There's been a great deal of discussion in the public about our artificial intelligence gun detection. I will remind you that it's for visible firearms only. It is not for concealed firearms inside of bags. And it is only for firearms that are being used as they approach our schools. If you look at school safety, there are a number of different threats that we face. This was put into place with fidelity across our system. And as far as from being a fiduciarily responsible point of view, there is nothing better that we can do to turn a forensic piece of camera into a proactive measure that provides us alerts when someone is approaching our school with a firearm. It does work. We do have evidence of that. We do have pictures of that we have used and that we have. What I will tell you is that this is for one thing. And if you think about what happened at the Covington School in Nashville, if you think about what happened at Uvalde, if you think about what happened at Sandy Hook, those people who attacked those schools, those monsters that attacked those schools, showed up with a firearm in plain view. In this case, had that happened at a Charles County Public School and somebody walked up to our front door with the firearm with the intent of harming our babies, we would have gotten an alert that buys us seconds to change operational conditions inside of our building. And that's what we're after, is buying as much time as we possibly can to make sure we can keep as many babies safe as possible. You also see some of the other things. The See Something, Say Something. We implemented BARC several years ago that our office funds and helps and runs through our student services, which is a 360 degree monitoring of our Microsoft products that our students use, as well as our buzzing in that we use, as well as our late entry procedures. The delay that you hear about is our fencing, our security film, which we do have on all of our buildings, and our guided vestibules, which are in all of our buildings as well. When it comes to the denying of access, our locking doors, truth be told, one of the number one things that we can do to make sure that our students are safe is to make sure that our doors are locked and closed at all times. That includes our classroom doors. It also includes our exterior doors. One of the biggest threats, believe it or not, that we currently face is Uber Eats and other food delivery services to our secondary schools that just come to a side door, and a kid props the door open or opens the door in order to get their food delivery. We've even had parents that have had food delivered to door 13 at their local high school because their kid missed lunch or whatever else. That is a huge security threat, and we have to make sure that our doors are locked at all times and closed, and we need your help. We also have, and then the defend, which is also how we respond to these things. So the mapping that we share with the local police, we use the incident command system, as well as we do regular security assessments. We just went through we just funded a physical security assessment of our entire school system by an outside contractor at the beginning of the school year that was completed in October. So we continue to do those things to make sure that we are partnering with outside security professionals to ensure that we're doing everything possible and staying abreast of all the things that are out there. And I mentioned our family reunification. And one of the things that I will also mention is our threat assessment piece. That as I get I'm fortunate enough to travel and talk about the amazing things that we do here in Charles County. Believe it or not, Maryland and the Charles County Public Schools are one of the few schools in the nation that actually have an advanced behavioral threat assessment team and group and policy and model procedures that we use on a routine basis with students who need additional help, supports, and attention. So one of the first comments that I saw was metal detectors. So let's talk about metal detectors and the considerations. And let me make this perfectly clear to everybody who's listening. We're not saying that we're not going to do any of these things. We're not saying that these are off the table. We're not saying any of that. But it is important that you understand the realities of and the considerations that must go into place as we walk through this, as we walk through all of these things that we're going to talk about. There is no evidence that metal detectors significantly increase school safety or reduce school violence. If you go to your Google machine and look that up right now and type that in, ask it if there is evidence. It will give you a response and it will match what is written on that slide. There is actually evidence that the presence of metal detectors actually increases anxiety amongst our students, as well as reduces see something, say something, because kids believe that these metal detectors will keep them safe. Metal detectors, as we saw sadly in a local jurisdiction where just this week, or last week maybe, I don't know, one of these days they all start to run together. A AK-47 model rifle was discovered inside of a school that has metal detectors, has clear backpacks. These are not 100% solutions. They require a tremendous amount of not only investment financially, but also in human capital to run them. And if you talk to any school district, they will tell you, if you remember way back in the day with, I think it was Principal Joe Brown in Lean On Me, they had metal detectors that were depicted in that school, and the kids were smart enough to get objects around them. And our kids are no different, and they're no different across the United States. So as we walk through this, understand metal detectors, just the individual pieces, they range in price from most local jurisdictions. They pay between $16,000 and $20,000 per unit. And if you look at implementing this with fidelity, because it only makes sense that we implement it with fidelity across our system, because the only shooting that we've ever had in the 106 years that the Charles County Public Schools has existed is in an elementary school. Up until Thursday, the 24th, we hadn't recovered a firearm in a high school since 2019. So as we look at this, it is very difficult to argue, well, we just institute them in high schools, when the event that we had that would be the precipice for this actually occurred in elementary school. And then how do I say, or how do we justify only putting it in this school versus this school? Because the arguments are then going to become, well, doesn't my kid deserve this? Or why is my kid's school getting this? So there's a lot of considerations. So when you look at the breakdowns of the way that our schools are made up, when we look at the way that people enter our schools, we have car rider lines, we have buses, we have all these other bus doors, we have all these other things. It would take roughly 156 detectors, which is the number that we're going. It's actually more, probably a little bit more than that. At an initial investment from the $16,000 to $20,000 to $2.4 million to $3.2 million just for the equipment. There is also AI-driven metal weapons detection, which if you've been to Disney, if you've been to the Cap Center, if you've been to any of those things recently, you've probably walked through. That's a little bit of a different technology. Those are $120,000 to $160,000 for a 4-year lease. So that's roughly a $19 million process. When we look at staffing commitments, metal detectors, the leading practice to run metal detectors in any facility is 3 people per detector. So that's over 450 new employees to run this at approximately $82,000 per full-time employee is what the Charles County Public Schools, every time we add a person, no matter if it's a school security employee or a teacher, it's about $82,000 initially. So that's a $38 million increase to our budget just in the human capital. One of the things that I would like to point out to you, the last year that TSA, who's the professionals that do this is in an aviation standpoint, and as a federal organization, last year that they released their red team and IG reports, they failed 67 out of 70 inspections. Those are the people that keep us safe at an airport. An airport is a secure facility that they can maintain security of all the time. Schools are open from 5:30 in the morning until many times after 11 o'clock during the week, plus weekend events. Plus, we have other events on Saturdays and Sundays that range from community events all the way through. In order to operate a secure environment such as that metal detectors would do what people expect them to do, those considerations would have to be taken into account as well. The other thing that I would mention here is at Westlake, the gun never got into the school. Does it matter whether the gun actually got into the school or whether it was caught at the door? It still creates anger. It still creates frustration. It still creates the anxiety. And what we did worked at Westlake to catch this. So if we would have had the metal detectors and we found a gun at the door, would that have changed the response? At a local school district that has metal detectors and implemented them 2 years ago, they've already found 6 firearms in their schools, and a vast majority of them have not been because of their entry control points. We also have to look at settings. We have to look at secondary search rates. These things, our schools are not set up with outside awnings. So when it's raining, there's going to be a line. When it's snowing, kids are going to be standing outside. And we've moved to threat. Now we've created a whole nother security issue for those operational lines, hours of operation, certifications, all those other things. And we already talked about the psychological impact. So those are the considerations as it relates to metal detectors. The next thing, clear backpacks. So it doesn't have near the impact here as it does in person, but I will show you, again, there's no evidence that clear backpacks increase safety at the K-12 level. They were tried at a number of different schools post-tragedy, and in every case that I can find, they've been withdrawn for a number of different reasons, but the simple reason is they don't work. Once you put something into a clear backpack, it's no longer clear and it can be hidden. At the Billingsley Town Hall, I used my daughter's backpack, took all of her contents that she carried that day to school, put it in a clear backpack, and hid 2 handguns, full-size Glock replicas inside of the backpack, and no one could see them. I will show you here, while not her contents, this is a clear backpack that has normal things, a computer, books, and things like that. There are actually 2 handguns hidden inside of this bag. And yes, I know it doesn't have the impact on camera as it does in person. However, this is the realities of clear backpacks. Again, availability was an issue. A local school system put it into place as a mandatory thing for all their schools and then walked it back shortly thereafter because they couldn't find enough for all their students in the local area, and that was a big school in the DMV, as well as durability issues and the long-term plan. Come August, if we were to roll out clear backpacks, I can almost assure you that we are going to get a number of calls from people who have not attended. The 400 people that are on the call right now have not attended and heard this, who are going to complain and scream that their 4th grader can't have the latest Marvel backpack. Because we saw that when we implemented the backpack policy in 2019. Every year, I still have a number of parents who call me, specifically at the middle school level, demanding that their students be allowed to carry backpacks and trapper keepers and all these other things. And I understand that, and most of them were not in the system when we suffered 2 guns in 6 weeks at a local high school. And the reason that we implemented that rule. So, clear backpacks. The next thing, public safety, increase of public safety curriculums. We know what the root cause of the Billingsley Road event was. That was, sadly, a 9-year-old who had access to a loaded firearm. That is the root cause to this event. That is where that event started. We then had 3 touch points inside the school where we had missed opportunities. As we make decisions on where we move forward from here, it's important to understand that we have to deal with the root cause of this event. And in many cases, that is outside the walls of our schools. That's why we hear all the time, the school safety starts at home. It doesn't start at our doors. As we move through this, understand that increasing the personal safety curriculum does have research-based and does have a history of success. However, it does take time. It is not an immediate feel-good, I can touch it, I can see it, thus I feel better, but it does work, and it does take time. It is also highly cost-effective. Working with local experts, bringing people in to talk about different safety aspects, not just firearm safety, but also student safety, weapon safety, things like that. Being able to tell a stranger, good touch, bad touch, all of those things is highly important and highly cost effective. The next thing, the expansion of the Youth Engagement Advocate Program. I saw several questions in some of the local chat groups about what our Youth Engagement Advocates are. This is a program which they are classified under the state of Maryland law as school security employees. However, we did it a little bit differently. Our youth engagement advocates are actually more or less, they're looked at, they're members of the administration that are looked at as being an administrator with no educational responsibilities. In other words, their job is the physical security of the buildings, to be the first responders to incidents that occur inside of our buildings, as well as relationship building amongst all of our students and to run mentoring programs. They're also going to be instrumental in rolling out of our restorative practices and our conflict management programs throughout our entire system over the next several years. We have 10 of them, 1 in every high school, plus the Steedham Educational Center, as well as 2 additionals that act as supervisors or floaters. So we know that this system works. The initial ask when we rolled this system out was a shot in the dark, was a moonshot. Let's put it that way, where I asked for 33 total. We got funding from the county for 7. We were then able to, we asked for more last year. We were then able to use some grants, and we were able to hire 3 more. This program works. You can talk to any of the high schoolers. They'll know who their youth engagement advocate is. And the testimony comes directly from them, how this program works and the team that we put together. So yes, we are going to ask because we know that, again, this is a research-based solution that works. So at this point, I will turn this over to Dr. Blanchard.
Good evening, Charles County School Board, Dr. Navarro, the senior leadership team, Mr. Stoddard, our community. I'm Dr. Mike Blanchard. I'm the Director of Student Services, and I'm sorry I have to be here tonight talking about these two incidents. And I want to talk about what we're doing to support our students' mental and behavioral health. In my opinion, that is the most important part of my job, is to ensure that we have mental and behavioral supports in all of our schools to meet those needs of all of our students. As you can see outlined here, we have school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists on staff in all of our buildings. That would include at Westlake as well as at Billingsley. We have several community vendors as well as Hazel Health for in-person and virtual therapy services, which were also in place after the incident in Billingsley and supporting Westlake, and those are additional resources available to all community members. And in addition, on a daily basis, we offer all types of behavioral and mental health services to our students. Mr. Starr, can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we have a host of other, besides personnel to provide support, we have a number of other curriculum as well as virtually based tools that we use to help all of our students. These are services that we have in place due to grants, general funds that have been in place over years. Teen mental health first aid has been rolled out in all of our high schools now. In addition, we have Deter America, which is in our fifth grade, presented to all our fifth grade students. We're doing that in coordination with the Charles County Sheriff's Office. Currently, the Deter America program is focused on alcohol and drug awareness, as well as kind of a say no type of program. We are currently in conversations with our Sheriff's Office to expand the Deter program to include gun safety for next school year. In addition, we have something called base modules at all of our secondary schools, and those are concepts around personal safety as well as decision making for students that are a virtual tool that can be assigned to all of our students now have access. We even have information at the elementary level for our youngest students in areas such as Move This World that focuses a lot on developing relationships with adults. And if students, even in our kindergarten, even in our pre-K level, are seeing misbehavior from students, to ensure that they're reporting it to adults so that we can intervene. Next slide, please. Additionally, we have, let's go back one. We have our school counselors do classroom lessons, and they go into all of our classrooms monthly. They have different themes that they focus on. And one of the major themes for tonight that they talk about is reporting of feeling unsafe through multiple methods: see something, say something, notifying trusted adults, and so on. They talk about following all rules regarding emergency drills. We had Unity Month in October, that's anti-bullying, and as we know, we also very much focus on an anti-violence message, both verbally and physically, for all of our students. And Mental Health Awareness Month is currently in May, and there's a host of activities taking place in all of our schools. If anyone who's familiar with our schools, we have something called multi-tier systems and supports. All of our schools are PBIS schools that talk about a host and range of different behavioral expectations for our students. They're ready, responsible, and ready to learn. Restorative practices are available in all of our grades. Zones of regulation, conscious discipline, second step, trauma-informed practices. Those are just some of the many tools that we have in place across all of our schools. Next slide, please. In addition, we have a health curriculum that is across all of our grades. As you can see here in 24-25, our health curriculum focused on gun safety instruction in grades 3, 6, and in grades 11 and 12. We're expanding that instruction for next school year to also include grades 2 and 4. This follows MSDE, Maryland State Department of Education guidance. In addition, not only do we talk about gun safety, but obviously our health curriculum talks about a host of issues for our students. Health-related skills, particularly on developing decision-making and making wise decisions around a host of potentially difficult situations for our students. And we have received very positive results from reports from our students about how they're responding to our health curriculum. Thank you, Mr. Dotter.
That's my slide. So I want to be very clear, because I know you've heard quite a bit about what we are doing and what we learned and what we are expecting to do. So I want to talk explicitly about short-term improvements. And what we mean by that is for what we are doing until the end of this school year and what you will see as we launch the beginning of next school year. first and foremost that all of our schools, we are incorporating safety messages daily to our students in a variety of ways, because the reality that every incident is a little bit different. The issues of 2 guns in our school facilities are very different from Billingsley to Westlake. But what we know is that we need to be continuously talking to our students about the dangerous weapons that cannot come to our schools. The other thing that we are going to continue to do is, you heard a little bit about our technology security solutions. Mr. Stoddard and others are researching additional enhancements that look at the technologies that we can use to monitor who's coming into our buildings, who is in our buildings, who's leaving our facilities, and what is coming in. So we will be bringing forward some options moving forward that we will bring to our facilities. We will be adding additional drills to model for students and staff what to do with different scenarios. When they could be a weapon, when someone's talking about a potential of a weapon, when a young person sees a weapon within the facilities, what do we do? We are going to add more drills that model for young people what to do in those cases, and also for staff. One of the things that Mr. Stoddard mentioned was that we need to continue to collaborate with external security partners. I will tell you that I have unfortunately had to talk to a lot of directors of safety and security from neighboring school systems. Unfortunately, right now, we live at a time where in our public schools, a lot of weapons are coming into our buildings. And so we are networking with other school systems in Virginia, in Maryland, and around the country to talk about what are the things that we need to continuously implement to support the safety in our schools. And what are the other messages that we need to send to our families? And we'll talk a little bit about our parent education and engagement opportunities, and what we need to advocate for accountability and support for safe learning environments. The incident at Billingsley queued up to us that we need to have the see something, say something QR codes more readily available and talked about at the elementary level. We focus, frankly, when we put this out for students at the secondary level, middle and high school, to simply be able to pick up their cell phones, to be able to anonymously let us know if something is happening. And we have those posters and opportunities at the elementary level, but not enough. So we're going to need to make sure that those are there, and that we explicitly teach our kids and our staff to what to do and how to respond to the see something, say something. Those are locations in our buildings and visual clues and reminders for young people to do something when an incident, when something is seen or they hear about something that is happening. And we're going to continue to focus on the lessons regarding personal safety with a major rollout of emphasizing that at the very beginning of the year. As we begin next school year, we want to be very explicit with our families and our students around what are the consequences of misbehaviors, what are the things to do when you hear or you see something. And we are going to practice throughout so that young people know exactly what we need to do. Next slide. Talking about long-term goals, which will move us into next school year and beyond. I want to be very clear that I want to work to bring forward to our elected officials issues regarding school safety and security. And I know that we have had bills that have not passed moving forward around information that school systems need to have access so that we can better support the safety of our schools. And we will continue to do a lot of advocacy also around what happens when these incidents happen, so that we don't have adults that puts young people in situations where they're not being held accountable. And that's going to be important for us to collaborate with multiple agencies, law enforcement, the court system, our elected officials. So we will be doing quite a bit of advocacy. We'll be working not just locally. I will be working with the organization of the superintendents in Maryland, because unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident in Charles County. It happens throughout, and we need to be more vocal about what we want to see in our community. You heard from Mr. Stoddard the expansion of the Youth Engagement Advocate Program. We will continue to bring forward the need to expand those programs and find resources to expand that support in our schools. And then the idea of continuing to work with school administrators to make sure that the discipline under the Code of Conduct is consistently applied. I saw in the chat, why is it that in some schools, the clear backpacks, that the backpacks are not staying in lockers? That, I agree, is an issue of implementation that is within our locus of control, and we will continue to work to ensure that the rules are being followed, because they are for the safety of everyone in the facilities. Unfortunately, when we developed the Family and Community Engagement Academy, which is our parent education academy, we never envisioned that we would have to talk about two major topics, which we will explicitly do, starting with our youngest parents at the elementary level. And that is drugs, accessibility of gummies, marijuana, and other drugs, and the responsible, knowledgeable way of dealing with adults that may have those drugs available to kids, and kids who are curious and unfortunately bring it to our schools, as well as weapons. And we need to be very clear. If you are a gun owner, you need to be a responsible gun owner, and you need to make sure that your weapons are secured so that young people have no access to them. So we will be incorporating a lot of those messages in our parent engagement activities, and we will be talking to families specifically whose children have had issues with our code of conduct, who have interacted, so that we can proactively address those issues. You heard from Dr. Blanchard that we will continue to expand the mental health supports for students. This is an area of high need, especially after we came back from COVID. Continues to be a high area of need, and we will continue to bring mental health folks who every single day are working in our schools to prevent issues, to address issues before they happen. We will continue to do that work of filling our positions, looking for experts and bringing them into the field, into our schools. Next slide, please. What we are requesting of our families, you heard loud and clear. We need safe and responsible gun ownership and storage, first and foremost. And we will be, as an educational entity, teaching our families and our community what that looks like. And we are going to partner with whomever to ensure that we can get that message to our entire community. We need parents to conduct random checks of their children's backpacks and belongings, especially the little ones. They are very curious and they bring things that they should not be bringing to schools. We need your help in making sure that you check that. When we check students, we need to have some sense of why we're checking students. So we at the school level, and I think Mr. Stoddard can speak a little bit about the law behind that. We have some limitations. We can't just take every single backpack and check it every single day for every single student. But you can, and you can help us when you are looking into that. We ask that families monitor what students are purchasing and what they're doing in social media, because honestly, the lookalike guns, the knives, the tasers are being bought on Amazon. Kids are drawing on it to make them look like they're real guns, and unfortunately sometimes, very few times, but as we know, real guns actually make it into our campuses. The one thing that we know works the most, research tells us this as well, is that our children are constantly listening to what we say. So continual messaging not only will we do that, but we ask that you continue to do that with your children, whether they are young and you think that at the kindergarten level, the third grade level, it may not be appropriate. There are ways to talk to young people about being safe, and we will provide those resources for families so they know how to talk about that message. Just like you need to talk to your teenagers that when they say they're not necessarily listening, they still hear what you have to say, and the continuous message is important, especially around supporting the see something, say something strategy that we will also continue to message in our schools. Next slide. I mentioned what we need from our families, also for our community partners. We will continue to work with local partners, national and state level experts to look at the practices that we institute every day, the trainings, any purchases, anything that we bring forward in terms of curriculum so that we learn from other places. Unfortunately, in the state of public schools, there are way too many instances to learn from, both locally and nationally. But we will keep those connections going so that we can implement things that really do make a difference. We will continue, as I mentioned before, to expand all of our trainings and opportunities for adults to understand what we mean by responsible gun ownership. And we will be working on legislation that does two things: support students and families with the needs that they have, access to programs that they need, but also legislation that is tighter around the accountability that we need to be able to support running safe schools. I want to make sure that you understand that our advocacy continues daily to make sure that we look for the resources and the personnel to prevent crisis in a very complex school safety environment that unfortunately is our public schools today. I know there have been a lot of comments, a lot of questions, and I pass it back to you, Ms. Morley, so that we can answer any questions and that you, the board, and the community have. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Navarro, as well as Mr. Stoddard, Dr. Blanchard. Wonderful presentation, very much appreciated. As you can imagine, with almost 400 participants, the chat has been jumping. I don't know how Ms. Mackey and Ms. Taylor have been able to keep up with it. Let me first address something that I have seen quite often, and candidly, a question I had as a parent before I became a board member. Why and how can we hold the parent, or why can't we, and how or can we hold the parents accountable? Let me just share that is not within the purview of CCPS. Our authority begins and ends with your students, with your scholars, with our children. Holding the parents accountable, and including with these previous incidents, rests with the state's attorney. That's where those decisions are made. It is not something that is within the purview of CCPS. I agree with you regarding holding the parents accountable, and that's me speaking in my personal individual capacity. I know others may share those thoughts. I'm just speaking on behalf of myself. I think that would be one way to deter some of these behaviors, and unfortunately, that's not something that CCPS is able to do. So I wanted to address that first and foremost. I have quite a few thoughts and comments, but I will begin with my fellow board members, as I typically do, beginning with Madam Vice Chair. If you have any questions or comments, we'll ask our board members, and then I know Ms. Mackey and Ms. Taylor have been keeping up with the questions. I'm sure many of them can be grouped together and they're around similar themes, so we will certainly address as many as we can. So, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I just want to again thank Mr. Stoddard and Dr. Blanchard. This was a wealth of information provided. I know it's a lot, parents, and as Madam Chair stated, you know, many of us have students in the school system. I myself have a child that attends school here. And so we share a lot of your concerns. And so we had a lot of the questions that you had as well after the recent incidents. And so we just want you to know that, we're not really looking at this from a 50,000 foot view, because we're there in the schools with you, because we are parents as well. So just wanted to share that. And there are a lot of questions. I tried to respond to some of the comments and questions that I could, but there are a lot. As Madam Chair said, the chat's jumping. So I couldn't get to everything, but as a collective, we'll do our best. But one of the themes that I see, and that I hope either Dr. Navarro or one of the staff can address, is about not just holding parents accountable, and thank you, Madam Chair, for addressing that as being outside of our purview, but about the discipline that is provided to the students. And a lot of the suggestions are, candidly, just throw them out of school and things like that. But the law prevents a lot of those things from happening. And I know many of us are probably similar in age. So I remember when I was in school, and there were alternative programs, and there were situations where if you were caught, doing something like bringing a weapon to school or drugs or things of that nature, things that egregious, you were expelled from school, and expelled meant you were never coming back. But that is no longer the case, and that is not a CCPS rule or a Charles County Board of Education policy that can be changed. Those are state laws. And so I just wanted to see a lot of that, suggestions for just, sending kids to alternative schools or expelling them if, no tolerance, those types of things. And a lot of that is decided by the state, and our hands are truly tied. So Dr. Navarro, if you could have someone address, kind of summarize how the law really prevents us from doing those things.
I'll get started. So in the chat, I saw a couple of times, and we have quite a lot in the chat, but when it is such a serious incident as the ones we're talking about this evening, the students do not return to their school. There was a question when we did a community meeting with Billingsley. Parents asked us, is the student returning? And I said, no, they're not returning to your school. They just simply are not returning to the school. But we do have to educate them. So by law, we do have to educate them. Depending on the grade level and the age of the student may go to an alternative program for a period of time. Now, when there is a loaded weapon that comes into a school, a gun, the law does say that they need to be out of the school, of that particular school, for 365 days. And so we have to still provide educational services, but in a different environment. We have some virtual programs that we provide students, and then we have an alternative placement program that we provide students. We, as Ms. Moore-Lee mentioned, our accountability, we are tied in what we can do in terms of parent behaviors and parent consequences in specific areas. And we also have some limitations. If we're talking about a knife coming into the school that we confiscate, there's a limit to what those are. And eventually our responsibility is to still educate the student. And there is a cycle by which they are expelled from the school setting, but they have to be returned at some point in time. I don't know if Jason or Dr. Jones, if you want to add.
If I could just add really quickly, Dr. Navarro, something I'm also seeing a lot around how do we change the laws. Please reach out to your elected officials, particularly on the state level, your state senators, your state representatives. A lot of what we're bound by has already been predetermined. Our staff attorney, Mr. Schwartz, did an excellent job preparing us when we joined the board, or breaking down the federal laws, the state laws, the local laws. And when you really understand the limitations that we have, you'll understand that, and Dr. Jones has shared this many times, CCPS, more often than not, to do. And I just want you all to understand that clearly. That's me talking to you, not just as a board chair, but as a parent. We're not able to do what we want. That's just the bottom line of the situation. So I just want to help clarify that for anyone who may have that question or feel like there's no discipline, nothing is happening. That's definitely not the case. And I know that because on the other side, we get the parents that are angry because their students are being disciplined. Just being very candid with you. But pardon me, Dr. Navarro. Mr. Stoddard or Dr. Blanchard, would you like to weigh in?
I'll leave that to Ms. Charmaine Young-Waddy and Dr. Jones. I think they would be better at that.
Yeah, I don't know that I have much of anything further to offer than in that regard than what Dr. Navarro and Ms. Morley have mentioned. Our ability to do anything beyond what or do anything along the lines of what people are asking is not necessarily a thing. That the law does require that our that students are educated, but certainly in instances like this. We do follow the law, and you heard Dr. Navarro mention it regarding the 365-day expulsion from that school, and we certainly we follow the law, and we as far and like Ms. Morley mentioned, we certainly implement our code of student conduct to the fullest extent that is allowable, and that's by the Maryland State Department of Education. As they put parameters and guidelines in place that each local school district must follow. But there's a range, and so we look at our school student code of conduct every year and determine if there are some adjustments that we need to make, and we are in the middle of that process right now, looking at the code of student conduct for next year and what that will look like, if there are any adjustments that we need to make and can make. But again, that is the extent of what we are able to do with students. And again, just like everybody else has already mentioned, I saw a lot of things about holding parents accountable, and that's just not. We have those conversations with families all the time, but there and express to them the importance of really understanding, the impact of not really doing all they can to take control over some of these situations. But that's beyond that. It's not much more that we can do with the families. That's just not our area. So anyway, I don't want to belabor that point. I know there are a lot of things you need to get to.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I appreciate it. Ms. Young-Waddy. Yes, ma'am.
So, good evening, everyone. I'm the actual hearing officer for Charles County Public Schools. So what I can tell you as far as discipline-wise, I review all cases that are sent to me, particularly when it comes to weapons, when it comes to school fighting and drugs and all of those things of that nature. I look at all aspects of everything that's going on, and what the Code of Maryland regulations allows for is we're looking at like a 45 days. Now, that's going to be some of the things that Dr. Navarro mentioned, your tasers, all of those things like that. And that is what is allowable under the state legislations, the state regulations that govern schools. So with that being said, I do address those things. I do have those very realistic and conversations with the students and families, where I'm looking at not just the discipline side of it, I'm also looking at the mental health side of it. I'm looking at, do I make a referral to Department of Juvenile Services for community-based services? Do I look at referrals for the local care team for mental health services? Do I look at community mediation through the College of Southern Maryland to address some of those community issues that keep filtering in the schools? I look at all of those components and I make those referrals to those community resources. What I can tell you is that I'm a parent of an 8th grader, so I definitely look at the perspective of, how we are disciplining, but also how we're educating. So I do try to find the balance in doing all of those things with discipline and the mental health and the community-based referrals. What I do need, though, is for some of those families to be active in those community-based referrals, because when I am submitting SINS petitions through Department of Juvenile Services, which are child in need of supervision, it's not necessarily always punitive, but it's definitely more along the lines of let's get some help and resources, and let's look at that accountability factor. Sometimes families are not always responsive. So that, kind of deters some of our involvement, but it doesn't deter my involvement. It just makes it difficult for us to really grasp a hold of some of those behaviors. Now, with that also being said, I go to court every week. So I am the school systems liaison who presents the data to the courts once those students do go to court. Now, as it pertains to real weapons, what we're talking about here, the Code of Maryland regulation states a 365-day expulsion. That 365-day expulsion doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be coming back to school. It does mean that we have to provide educational services. Those educational services could look like a variety of different things. Doesn't necessarily have to be in a school building, but I wanted you all to be aware that, we do look at all of those factors, and I do take in consideration the whole picture, the students, the family, and then what my referral base will be. And some of those referrals do go out to those community partners, including the Charles County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Ms. Youngwadi. And let me reiterate again for anyone who may have joined late. I'm a mother of 3. My oldest has graduated through CCPS. I have 2 elementary school students currently in our school system. Several of us on this board do grandchildren, children, great-grand, etc. So this is not something that is theoretical for us. We live this daily. I have these conversations. Let me also say that my husband and I are gun owners. We're responsible gun owners. With our elementary school students in our home, we separate the guns from the bullets. Everything is in separate safes with separate combinations outside of the reach of children. So I don't want anyone to feel like in any way CCPS is saying we have no accountability. That's not the message here. We accept our responsibility, but it's not just on CCPS. So I really want to reiterate that. And that's coming from me in my personal capacity as a parent. It cannot happen just from CCPS. It has to be a community approach. Everyone has to do as much as they can to keep children as safe as possible. I agree with Mr. Stoddard. I wish we lived in a world where we could 100% guarantee every student will be safe every day. Unfortunately, that's not a reality. And this, as much as it pains me to say that as a mother, I worry about my own children every day, but I also talk to them. I have conversations regularly about what they should and shouldn't do. If they see something, they should say something, how to keep themselves safe, etc., etc., etc. That's a daily conversation, a responsibility I accept as a parent, independent of serving on the board. And so I really want to reiterate that to parents. You are your children's first teacher. They listen to you more than anyone else. So if you could do nothing else, please do that for us. Engage your students. Let them understand that we take our responsibility very seriously, but we also want the parents to be more engaged and more active. I understand for some it may be an unpopular opinion. This is my opinion, and if I take the hits, I'll take the hits. But I just felt the need to share that. It has to be a joint responsibility. And with that, are there any other board members that have questions or comments? Ms. Samisha Thomas, and then Mr. David Hancock.
Hi, thank you, Chair Morley. I watched the chat, and I am the District 1 representative, so I want to make that very clear. Maybe some of you are not familiar, so let's get acquainted. I'm your District 1 representative, and I've seen lots of information in the chat. I spent 20 years as a parent in Charles County Public Schools, and then my last child graduated last year. So I have been in the school system since the early 2000s, and I have seen quite an evolution over the years across the county. But I would like to say that from the most positive perspective here, and I see lots of parents that are here leaning in the chat, partnerships, partnership. We as board members want to partner with you. I know very soon many of us will be coming out and soliciting community recommendations and suggestions because we're interested and we want to hear. We invite you to email us. We invite you to come to our board meetings. We invite you to reach out at any time to give us your recommendations and suggestions. Community partnerships. One thing I'm very big on is finding a parent partner. I have a sister who has children at TC Martin, so I am over there quite often with my nieces and nephews. I have loved ones across the county with children. That partnership matters. Sometimes you need someone to answer questions for you about, I've never encountered this before. What do I do? If you can find your community partner, your parent partner, or someone that can help you parent, get through struggling times as your children grow and you need things, I think that is very important. And we are here to be partners with you to keep your children safe, to educate them, and to also come up with common sense solutions that are going to help us all. So, I say that to say send us emails, reach out to us in any way you can. If your PTO wants to invite us to come to your PTO meetings, I know my colleagues are happy to attend. And that is where we're going to find the richness and goodness in how we make these changes. Parent partnerships with you, with the community, to make sure that we're doing the best for all of our students. And so in the interest of time, I'm going to yield it back to you, Chair Morley. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas. Mr. Hancock.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just want to thank everyone who has chimed in here. I'm reading the chat now, and I've been reading the chat. There's over 400 individuals here, and there's a lot that's coming in on the chat. And there's a few things I want to say, but it's been said a couple times on the chat. We're 28,000 students in the system. We have 400 parents on the chat. Sounds like a lot, but we're missing a lot. The parents that are on here right now, their students are the ones that are causing these issues. So one question that I want to pose to the board is how do we reach the ones that aren't on here, the ones that need to be reached, so that because we do need to work as a team. Nothing will be accomplished if we as a board and parents and the school system, individual schools don't work together. But there's a lot of missing people that should be here that we need to reach. And I've seen that in the chat, and I completely agree with that. And I think that's something we can work on. So there's a few things I wanted to check. I have a question. So I know we spoke about the issues with expulsion and the state laws that are involved with that, and how a student can't be expelled past 45 days. I have one question about the home and hospital aspect, and I think Dr. Navarro, you may be able to answer this question. So home and hospital, basically, and correct me if I'm wrong on anything I'm saying, but home and hospital is basically for someone who's either too sick to attend an actual in-person school, or perhaps just for a safety factor can't attend an in-person school. Is there still a time limit on that home and hospital? And if you could answer, appreciate it.
Yes. So yes, we will send a teacher to either the child's home or a public place, depending on the issue. So if the kid has been sick, that would be the reason why a teacher goes to somebody's home. Sometimes we use the version of known as home and hospital, where we send teachers to teach kids in other settings other than not schools for disciplinary issues. And in that sense, if it's a disciplinary issue, we will also be held to those amount of limits and times. And Mr. Hancock, just to add to the piece, one of the things that we have been talking through and will implement is, yes, we'll do parent learning opportunities starting at the elementary level, clearly into middle school and into high school. One of the things that we're going to continue to do is reach out to families whose kids have had issues with the code of conduct, whether it's a violation on drugs, whether it's a violation on fighting, whether it's a violation obviously higher up, and talk to them. And as much as we can get them to engage, and Ms. Young-Wadi does a lot of work with families who are in crisis because of what their student has done, and many times convinces them to be part of those programs. We cannot make them. And one of the things that I mentioned when I said short term that we're looking for partners is there were some bills that came up this legislative season that did not move forward, that looked at the court systems and other places to require adults, things that my agency cannot do, the school system cannot do, but there's other agencies that have other ways of holding families more accountable than the school system does. So we will be looking at those. We will be bringing them to our local officials as proposed bills and then moving them in the process up to Annapolis so that other elected officials can take a look at those bills, and hopefully those bills get passed and move forward that allow us to have more accountability when these instances occur. Thank you.
All right. 1 second, Ms. Jamila Smith, just a couple of quick points. Myself, Mr. David Hancock, Vice Chair Nicole Kramer, and Ms. Brenda Thomas all serve on a community engagement subcommittee. All of our meetings, whenever the board meets, including town halls, if you go to ccboe.com, I believe it's under board members. If you could please post it in the chat, Ms. Mackey or Ms. Taylor. There's something called board docs where all of our meetings, any committee meetings we have, are posted. They're all open to the public. We have public forum twice a month. We have town halls quarterly. As I posted in the chat, we're in the schools, we're at events weekly. So we're very accessible, and we want you all to engage with us. And so if nothing else gets across, we welcome your ideas and suggestions, not just the people that agree with us, because this is a multi-step, multi-party solution, candidly. Ms. Youngwadi also engages quite a bit with our teen court, which is run through the sheriff's office. The board has also discussed the possibility of establishing a peer court, which will encourage the students to hold each other accountable, because very oftentimes that messaging needs to come from another student. So when Dr. Navarro mentioned the multi-step approach, when Mr. Stoddard talked about it, that's what we mean. It's not just a one and done, a one size fits all. We are open to your suggestions. We want to hear from you. So please continue to engage. I will drop my email address in the chat, but ccboe.com has a wealth of information, just about any subject. Yes, Ms. Smith, thank you for your patience.
No worries. You actually hit several of the points that I wanted to raise. So it really was just an opportunity to double down on several of the points that my colleagues have raised. I too have children in the system, 1 high schooler and 2 middle schoolers, and have a wealth of conversations with them just in terms of what's happening in their schools. What are they seeing? What are they hearing? What are they feeling? And when they're feeling these things, like, who do they feel they can talk to aside from, their dad and I? Who are the trusted adults in the school that they feel they can partner with and kind of share, whether it's their emotions or things that they see, just making sure that they are continuously supported in the schools. So hearing the comments of parents, and not necessarily hearing, but reading all the comments in the chat from parents, we too definitely empathize and are also going through a variety of range of emotions and conversations with our kids. So we are not kind of separated from the things that we're hearing from the chat. We too are living that life. I wanted to take a moment just to thank Dr. Navarro and her team for quickly pulling together this town hall, but even prior to the town hall, pulling together a wealth of information and resources and trying their level best to be responsive to the community. Because as you can imagine, it wasn't just the interest of the 400 some odd parents on this call, but also being kind of peppered with comments and questions from the community, whether it's via email or voicemail or just Dr. Navarro and her team kind of traversing the county, but trying their level best to be accessible and available. And in terms of just availability and accessibility, this is a very, very active board, a very engaged board. You heard from our chair that we are in the schools, we are in the community. We try our level best as well to be as accessible and available to you all, whether it be via email or in Safeway or in Giant or wherever you may catch us. We absolutely want to hear from not just parents, but also students. We also want to hear from community members as well in terms of what's happening that we may not be privy to and ways that we can try to solve some of the things that are coming about. But as Dr. Navarro shared at the very beginning of the presentation, over 80%, I believe the marker was 80%, please correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of our students are doing exactly what they are supposed to be doing, the majority of them. So we really are dealing with one-off cases, a cluster of cases, and trying to figure out ways that we could nip those things in the bud so that those students who are doing what they're supposed to be doing are able to make it through their courses, able to make it through school successfully. So those were just my points that I wanted to raise. Very excited about this. I would love to see more of this chat. I'm not sure, Ms. Mackey or Ms. Taylor, if we're able to get a transcript of the chat, but would love to kind of go through it in some way in more detail once the meeting is over.
Yes, they did share, as we typically do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Mackey, they definitely take all of the questions posed, they group them, we create FAQs, especially around things that we're seeing trends around. Is that correct, Ms. Mackey? Thank you very much.
Glad to hear.
Yes, ma'am. And I had a point, Ms. Smith, and I hate when that happens when it escapes me. Oh, you raised the same point that our student member, who unfortunately was not able to join us because he's also an athlete and working very hard, but he raised an excellent point when we last met about focusing and rewarding the 81% that do what they're supposed to do, and not just always being so doom and gloom and making it seem like every student in CCPS has behavioral issues. The vast majority do not. Unfortunately, what happens oftentimes is the negative gets the attention. And I've also seen in the chat excellent points around protecting our staff. We've had those conversations. We always speak with the EACC when something happens. I absolutely agree with you on that protecting our staff is of utmost importance for us. But I don't want you all to feel like CCPS has overwhelmingly, quote unquote, bad students. I will never own that because I know that not to be true. The majority of our students make good choices. They do what they're supposed to do. But I also hear you and I share your concerns because candidly, my own sons have said that. Well, how come so-and-so gets to do what he wants? And how come he doesn't get punished? The reality is we can't share a lot of the information around student data and student discipline. And so it definitely then frustrates parents. And I share that frustration because when something happens, you don't always get to know what happened because we can only share but so much. Again, we're limited by law. And as you can appreciate, in a professional setting, if you were on your job and something happened, that's not going to be disclosed. So it's very similar. So I want you all to understand that it's not a case where we're playing hide the ball or we don't want to share information. That's not the case. And please understand, we are being as fully transparent as we can. We have changed our agenda so that we focus and emphasize where we're dealing with student data, where we're dealing with the strategic plan, with the things that are at the core of what we're here to do as board members, as a superintendent, as professionals. But we also have to balance that when things do happen in our schools, as much as we wish it wouldn't. It happens in every jurisdiction. I grew up in Prince George's County. Prince George's County is much larger, so of course they have many more issues than we do. I've lived in Montgomery County, similar things. So it happens everywhere. That again does not relieve us of our obligation, and no one here is saying that. We take our responsibilities very seriously, and as we say, when we get it right, we get it right. And when we don't get it right, we work to do better, and we're transparent and we own that. So I want you to please understand, it's not a case where, because I know some people are going to leave here feeling, oh, they're not doing anything. As you can see, as what's been outlined over these almost, hour and a half now, that's definitely not the case. But it doesn't mean that things are going to be perfect either. We unfortunately are going to make mistakes. We try our best not to make huge mistakes, but we are going to make mistakes. And there's no such thing as a perfect school system. But again, that does not relieve us of our obligation. And we take that obligation very seriously around the safety of our children, because that includes our children. So I just want to share that. Dr. Navarro, and then Ms. Thomas.
I also just wanted to say one of the things that the school system is rolling out for next school year is a strategic plan. And in this strategic plan, we come back to the board, we talk about metrics of improvement. What you saw today and all of this information is going to be made public, as Ms. Mackey mentioned, on our website. The short-term and the long-term goals will have metrics tied to them. So I want to be very clear. When we're talking about what do we do, because I hear the anxiety of parents. We're all parents of kids most of us are parents of kids attending the schools today. And what I want to make sure is that we come back and continuously update on the metrics that are tied to the short-term goals and the long-term goals. And that they are very much tied to the accountability for me, for my staff to implement and to update the community on what we're doing. We will have the evolution of additional ideas that come forward as we also learned of availability of other things. Not only is it about bringing in people to our schools, being specific with what we are teaching our kids and what we are bringing to the facilities, but there'll be additional technologies that will move forward. So this is the enhancements to our current plan that is coming forward to you, but expect there to be more, because every year we are learning and we're bringing in additional layers of security and support for our students.
Thank you very much. Excellent points, Dr. Navarro. Absolutely. We never rest where we are. Never. There's always opportunity for improvement. Ms. Samisha Thomas, and followed by Vice Chair Kramer.
Thank you. I wanted to also note one thing. I see a lot of the parents who, are leaning in with us as we talk about the need for transformation at the policy level at the state. One thing that's really important to know is that each one of us that are on the board also support the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. Many of us serve on committees there. Myself, I serve on a policy committee there. We do a lot of advocacy. So on any given night when Annapolis is in session, many of us are going up to Annapolis and we are lobbying for the very things that you all are asking for. We have the CCPS attorney who, Mr. Swartz, he works with us to, we're trying to persuade delegates in our area in order to support initiatives that we believe are very important for our parents in our community. We are changing policy at the Maryland Boards of Education in order to ensure that things are reflective of the needs for our community, but also students across the state. So as you, as parents, want to lean in with us, we would very much appreciate your support when we are at the Maryland Boards of Education, sitting on committees, influencing policy. That is part of our responsibility. Each of us are doing that, and we serve as chair on those. Additionally, I am the Strategic Planning Committee chair in Charles County Public Schools. We are working to make sure that we are aligning our new strategic plan with the voices of what parents need, what students need, and what we see the emerging needs of our community. So again, we welcome and we solicit any feedback from you all. As the Strategic Planning Committee chair, I am very happy to reach out and talk to those who want to share information. I do see someone from the chat, Ms. Ashley Linton, said she is a strategic planner and an analyst. Please feel free to reach out to me. I've done that for many years in the federal government, doing strategic planning and also doing that for in the federal agencies. I have a background in social work and education, so I am happy to solicit those community resources. We know that we have smart parents out there. You all are in attendance and you're leaning in, and if you have ideas, please come forward with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Samisha Thomas. You made some excellent points. Please allow me to reiterate that the board meets twice a month. Our big meeting, as I call it, is on the second Tuesday, typically beginning at 1 p.m. publicly. Forgive us if we run a little late because we're behind the scenes pre-meeting. And then we meet on the fourth Monday, typically beginning at 4:30 p.m. Both of those meetings have the opportunity for public forum. You can attend in person at the Starkey Building in La Plata. You can attend virtually. We have a CCPS YouTube channel, which is at CCPS-MD. We also, as I mentioned before, have CCBOE. And exactly as my fellow board member, Ms. Thomas, has said, most of our board is active on the state level. The vice chair and I serve on the legislative committee, and we've been bringing, and primarily through our board attorney, Mr. Schwartz, our superintendent's attorney, system attorney, Mr. Schwartz, has brought legislative updates regularly. The vice chair and I have attended those meetings twice a week. Trust me, we advocate very early and very often. We've attended events in Annapolis. We've testified. We've done quite a few things. In addition, I also serve on the board of directors of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, and I serve on the national level on the National School Boards Association Board of Directors. So that's the story for most of us, that we are very, very active and plugged in, not just on the county level, but statewide, and for many of us nationally. Our board member, Ms. Jamila Smith, has many years, not to age you, Ms. Smith, of federal education experience. And so we're not just talking about things that we think that we think, in theory, this is what we live. Our superintendent is an expert on education policy. This is the work that she's done. So say that to say that even with all of that, we never claim to have all the answers. We are plugged in, we're engaged, we're involved, but we're very open to comments and suggestions from our community. Yes, Vice Chair Kramer, and then Dr. Smalls.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great points by all of my colleagues, and just a lot of great comments and suggestions being made in the chat as well. I love this engagement. As Madam Chair said, the chair, myself, Mr. Hancock, and Ms. Brenda Thomas are on the Community Engagement Committee, and we are always seeking input and feedback from the public. I saw someone had some suggestions about how to get more of the resources to reach the community. If you have suggestions about that, if we're not doing a great job about that, I agree. A lot of times folks don't know about all the great resources that we offer in CCPS. If you have suggestions about how to get that message across to more parents and community members, please reach out to us. We want to hear your suggestions, and we need your help. And if you hear about things, please share it with your communities, with your PTOs, at your HOAs, wherever you are in the community. And as many colleagues mentioned, we are always in the community. We live here with you. So I have had parents stop me in the grocery store, in Target. If you see me, you recognize me, you want to say hello, please, feel free to do so. But we're talking with a lot of you, and we're hearing a lot of the concerns and the comments and suggestions, and even some of the positive feedback that you're giving, and we really do appreciate that, and we need all of it because we need to continue to look at how we can improve outcomes for our students. So a couple things I just wanted to mention as well. Someone mentioned in the chat about how to volunteer if you work from home and you want to get involved in your community school. Please reach out to your school. There is a background check that volunteers need to complete if they're going to have direct contact with students. But please reach out to your school principal, vice principal. Let them know that you're available and you want to help. I know the PTO at my son's school has a coordinator that is a volunteer coordinator, and so they will give information at the PTO meetings about what they will need, what the upcoming needs are for volunteers in the school. So if you're not already engaged with your PTO, please do that. But please reach out. If you have time available, the schools need your help. They want parents to come in and volunteer. So please do that. Please reach out. Not all school systems, I just want to mention, I know transparency has been brought up a couple of times. This is one of the ways that we're trying to make sure that we not only engage with the community, but being transparent. My board colleagues and I, we travel around, the country for the last several years, and we attend national conferences with other Board of Education members from all around the country and even the world. They come from some other countries as well. And believe me when I say, not all school systems talk about the opportunities that they have for improvement with their communities. And we are trying to, it's been an effort of this board, a goal of this board, to be more transparent and open with our community, because how do we know what we need to improve on if we don't acknowledge it and talk about it? And so I just want you to understand that that's an effort. That's an effort that we are trying to make, to be transparent with you. And we would just like your support. And if you have suggestions to improve things, we would love to hear those. So just wanted to make that point. And also a lot of the issues that we're talking about around behaviors and school safety, et cetera, really center around the culture and climate in the school. And as Ms. Samisha Thomas said, and Dr. Navarro, the strategic plan is being developed for next year. I'm also on that subcommittee. And school climate is tied to the strategic plan. It was the last time, and it looks like it's going that way this time as well for the next 4 years. And if you don't know about your school's school improvement plan, please ask, because all of the schools should have discussed that and presented that to their community, their school community at the beginning of the year. So if you don't know what your school is focusing on in terms terms of school climate, please, reach out and ask, because that information should be shared. And if you have suggestions on how to make improvements or help with that, please, again, reach out to your school principal, the vice principal, go to the PTO leaders, share that information, because it's a collaborative effort. That's the only way we're going to address a lot of these concerns, is we have to do this together. And it needs to be a partnership. As I think Ms. Thomas mentioned, it can't be a us versus you. And we are you. We're parents too. So a lot of us, and, we're invested, as deeply invested as you can get. School safety affects us all, and everything that goes on in the school buildings affects us all. A lot of these schools are within our communities, and we really need to all just work together, and not against one another. And so I just want to thank you all again for attending tonight, and for all the wonderful suggestions. I know several of us put our emails in the chat. Please feel free to reach out at any time. You will find we're a very responsive, very active board, as has been said, and so we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I know Dr. Smalls wanted to share. And after Dr. Smalls, Dr. Navarro, or maybe Dr. Jones, a recurring theme I've seen in the chat is fear of retaliation over see something, say something. So if we could please address that. And then there was also a request to briefly recap the discussion around metal detectors. Well, I've seen a couple people. And how can you see the recording? Oh, thank you. Ms. Mackey addressed it. It'll be posted on the CCPS YouTube channel. It's CCPS-MD. So Dr. Smalls, and then if someone could please address the fear of retaliation, which is an excellent question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to talk about just the community piece of being available. You all are mentors and coaches, the different parents, your resources. I believe that Co-Chair was talking about that. We need each other. So just if we all could be available to mentor and coach, community-wise, know your children, know who's catching the bus, know your children's friends, and teach them how to communicate. If they are feeling some type of way, they notice that their friends are kind of off, something has changed, something is different. So teach them how to have those conversations. Your different resources in your community. It's time for us to not just stay with one thing, but collaboratively reach out to each other in the different homes and know your neighbors and have conversations. And I know it's kind of, in the times we're living in, it's kind of scary sometimes, but sometimes we have to put ourselves out there and know what's going on and be able to say, as far as see something, say something. We're taking chances, but these are our children. Even my son, son and daughter graduated from CCPS schools. However, they're grown adults, and I'm still taking a temperature check to see where they are. And that's what we have to do with our children on a daily basis. So I just want to encourage us all to work together and use your own resources. If you're a mentor, if you're a coach, if you're a psychiatrist, whatever you are and whatever skill you may have, let's bring it together and come together with solutions to make changes, because they didn't just have bad moments. This has built up. So we need to find out what's going on so that we can make a change.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smalls. One moment, Ms. Warren. The Dr. Navarro or Dr. Jones, pardon me, could one of you please address the concerns around the retaliation?
Yeah, I'll get us started and then I'll ask Dr. Jones. So I'll tell you, having been a high school principal, the reality, and I think if you had any principals, and Dr. Jones having been a principal, we depend on kids coming to us and telling us what's going on. Whether there's metal detectors or no metal detectors, I have worked in Philly, I've worked in Delaware, I worked in DC, I worked in a couple of districts. We depend on the relationships that kids have with every adult in the building who are able to queue up for us how they're feeling, what they heard their friends do or say, And so to see something, say something, and the idea that there could be retaliation, and they're concerned the retaliation from adults or their retaliation from peers is a good point that has been brought up, that we need to continuously message from the very beginning that we will protect you, because by you saying something, you're protecting everybody who's in that building that day. And so if there are those concerns, we will continue to talk to our staff and to each other. One of the things that we've learned from listening to kids, and I have to commend the sheriff because he comes with me into the schools and we talk to kids. One of the things that we have expanded is our peer-to-peer and will continue to do is our peer-to-peer mentoring programs. Students have a lot of influence over each other, and the youth engagement advocates in our high schools are helping create those environments of peer-to-peer mentoring, peer-to-peer conversations and supports for each other, because we need that. And so that is continuous work to bust any cultures that say that because you're going to say something, it's going to come back and retaliate on you. And I take that from the community tonight saying we're not there yet. So we need to double down and commit to making sure that kids feel safe being part of the See Something, Say Something. Dr. Jones?
Sure, yeah. Just to piggyback off that a little bit, you started with one of the things that I was thinking regarding the depending on students. There are many, many more students than there are adults in any given building. In our largest schools with 1,600, 1,800 students, we might have 200 staff members, upwards, and that's high. And so what that means is that whatever is going on in our schools, and even in the smaller schools, there's always many, many more students, obviously, than staff. But when something is going on, most often, some students know about it before the adults do. And so we have to depend on the students in some respects to help us with getting information that we need to know. So it starts at an early age, teaching students the difference between tattling and telling, at the earliest ages, because you need to tell when we're talking about someone's safety being involved or possibly compromised. So we start with teaching students that there is a difference there, but then confirming for them or affirming for them that they will be protected. And so sometimes that means having conversations with students. The counseling team may have conversations just through the relationships that they have to get them to trust that they are going to look out for them, because that's what it's about. I need the information. And so maybe it's not a openly kind of conversation that a student is sharing some information. Maybe there are code conversations or I guess disguised ways of the students are able to get this information to the adults, that where the adults have worked these things out, worked out these kind of code words or these code opportunities. Maybe there's a note that's written and left on the teacher's desk. There's something you need to be aware of. I mean, these are just little ways that we, at the youngest, levels that we try to get students to do that. And then we, at the same time, we do have to ensure that they are going to be okay. And then we need to watch for that. We need to be sure that we are, circling back to be sure that there aren't any of this retaliation type of stuff or whatever that's going on. Because again, it's all about the trust and relationships. We want them to trust us, but at the same time, we need to trust them. And so we need to take care of that relationship. And that's with those kids. Because I saw someone in the chat put earlier about, we want kids to see something, say something using the QR code, but they're not supposed to have their phones. And we understand that. And so the elementary level, we try to teach them different ways of doing that, participating and see something, say something in some way, shape, or form, but still reassuring for them that we're going to take care of them. And then obviously the older students, they get into, it changes, snitches get stitches and all of that old stuff. I mean, again, the concept is the same. It's important to tell when there's something that needs to be told in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't much matter how that information gets to the adults. Most of the time, the kids know when something something bad is going on before the adults do, just because it's a numbers game. There's so many more of them than it is us. We can't be on every corner, at every place, at every bathroom, whatever it is at all times. And so we rely on them. We trust our students to share information with us, however they have to get it to us. And then we have to, do whatever we can to protect them. And so that's important to talk about that, to have the adults, the trusted adults, talk with students about that, how they're going to protect them, how they're going to do whatever they can to ensure that them sharing that information is a good thing, and that they won't have things to worry about because they've done so. That's our charge, and talking about that, how we can do that. We have to do that because, again, we need that information. When the older kids do see something, say something via the QR code or going online or what have you, obviously they are able to do that anonymously. And so, and that's not information that, we receive in order to share. So if it gets out that they put something in there, that may be by way of them, talking to someone else about it. But at the same time, if we are aware that there are concerns there, those concerns will be addressed proactively, and if necessary, certainly reactively. But that's our charge, to get our students to trust us, that we will do whatever we can to take care of them because they're doing the right thing in letting us know that there's a problem. So.
Yeah. And if I could briefly address some of the comments I've seen about, people feel like administrators are not following up, or, things are essentially, paraphrasing, almost falling on deaf ears, please feel free to reach out to us. We are not here to resolve or decide, but we can guarantee that you will get a response.
And administrators have supervisors too, the principals. I don't mean to cut you off, but the principals have supervisors as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, they're at that chain of command: teacher, assistant principal, and then there's an executive director. So
exactly,
yes,
I appreciate that. And ultimately, for those who may not be aware, this is another quick comment, that Dr. Navarro runs the day-to-day operations of CCPS. It is not the board. The board is, in theory, part-time, and we are responsible for budget, policy. Our only employee who we supervise is the superintendent of schools. So the day-to-day operations rests with the superintendent, and we support her as much as we can, but we also allow her to make those decisions. And a lot of the things that happen, as Dr. Jones mentioned, on the chain of command, whether it's executive directors, principals, etc. So I just want to clarify that as well. Many times the board doesn't know, just to be very candid with you, because we're not there every day. So but thank you for your patience, Ms. Warren.
Oh, no, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, no, tonight's been great. I've been in the chat. I've been, listening to everything everyone's saying. And I think one of the common threads is relationship, from administrator to teacher, starting with the central office staff to principals, from the superintendent to the principals. It's all about relationship. Us, the community being neighborly. Dr. Smalls talked about mentorship. I have neighbors, young people, young adults in my neighborhood that I've just engaged that, sometimes people don't feel comfortable, but I don't mind talking to them just to build that relationship. So I just want to point that out, that building relationship is everything. And I'm here for that. We're all here for that. Secondly, I wanted to, we talked about some of the subcommittees that we're on. I'm actually chairing the subcommittee for policy for Charles County, for CCPS. So our meetings are also recorded as well. So we're doing the work, and we are literally in the midst of updating our school policies. So I just wanted to put that out there to let everyone know that we are working on that. We're looking closely at our policies, updating them, refining them, doing everything we need to do to keep our students safe, keep our teachers safe, and everyone. So thank you.
Thank you. Excellent point, Ms. Warren. That was the whole reason why we established the subcommittees. Fiscal management, policy, strategic planning, and community engagement, to address some of the common themes and to allow the board to work in smaller subgroups and report back to the larger board. But to your point, to also allow for that the community to see what happens, to engage with us, to watch the meetings, etc. And forgive me if we go a minute or two over. I just wanted to directly address something that we've seen a couple of times in the chat. For those who may have missed the discussion, Around metal detectors, if I could please have Mr. Stoddard just do kind of like a high level brief recap. We also, again, the meeting has been recorded. It will be on YouTube at CCPS-MD, but we've seen the request multiple times. So if you could be so kind, Mr. Stoddard.
Yes, ma'am. 2 minutes, throw the slide back up here, and just kind of go over this. These are the considerations. Nowhere tonight have we said that we would never do this, we would not do this, but there are considerations with every security strategy that we must look at. This is also being shared. I think there's a link that's going around. In the end, the high level here is that there is no evidence that significantly increase school safety or reduce school violence. The return on investment is limited at best. They are in many cases because schools are not courthouses, they're not airports. They are not 100% secure all the time. They have multiple entrances. If you look at most of our schools, there's up to 30 or 40 doors in each one of our schools. The breakdown on the cost is a simple estimate of what it would take, roughly 156 detectors across to implement this with fidelity across our system. It only makes sense to institute it with fidelity because you can't argue that this group of kids is, with our statistics, this group of kids is more likely, or that group of kids is more likely, or this school or that school. And you can see the cost breakdowns. In the end, the one thing that most people don't think about as it relates to metal detectors is the human capital that it takes, with roughly 3 full-time employees per detector, which isn't just 3, it's actually 6 people to fill for leave, vacations, and things like that. And the fiscal note of this is the highest at the employee salary piece and the additional full-time employees. There's also other issues that I can get into more detail. I'm going to put my email and my phone number for my office in the chat. I would encourage anyone to reach out to me at any point in time. I enjoy speaking with people, and I am your security director, so I'm here to answer questions. But as I said it right at the beginning, while you may not agree with what I said, I will at least always tell you the truth about what we're looking at. So again, I'm highly encouraged that we have 400 people here today. I think that's probably the largest thing that we've had, and that's good. But I hope to see this in August when we start school, and that is when we need to make sure that we have everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stoddard. And similar conversation was had around the clear book bags, that once you put anything in them, they no longer become clear. Just a brief recap, because we've seen that as well. Any final thoughts, Dr. Navarro, before I close this out?
I just want to thank the board members and the members of the community, the parents. I put in the chat lots of really good insight tonight. We spent a lot of time reading your comments, and it challenges for us to think about what additional things we need to do and what we need to double down and ensure that we do really, really well. I appreciate the engagement every single day. And I do just want to reiterate, we have 28,000 students in our school system. The vast majority of our families are engaged. Our students are doing really, really well, very engaged. We don't have to be sick to get better. So we need to be able to continue the academic programs, the opportunities, the extracurricular activities for our students, the learning and the thriving opportunities. And at the same time, we must continue our vigilant work around school safety. So thank you for engaging with us this evening.
Thank you all so very much. I agree with Mr. Stoddard. This has definitely been the largest audience that we've had since, most of us, with the exception of Mr. Hancock, have been on the board. So this is very encouraging. For those who've asked, this is why we do virtual meetings. It allows people to participate from anywhere. It allows people to drop comments in the chat. Again, twice a month. Public forum is open to exactly that, the public. So please join us at our meetings. We would love to hear from you. Just a couple of quick final thoughts. Let us attack the problems and not each other. We don't have to agree. That's perfectly fine. I'm open, I always say, to the uncomfortable conversations and differences of opinion. But if we want our students to be model citizens, we have to model that as adults. So let's be mindful that anything we post on social media will get back to our children, and they will mimic that behavior. I just want to close with that thought. Thank you so very much for joining us. Again, I'm your board chair, Ms. Yanel Morley. Thank you to our board members, Dr. Navarro, to our staff. Special kudos to Mr. Stoddard and Dr. Blanchard. Very much appreciate it. Please join us. Our next board meeting is next week, next Tuesday. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.